You're right about that. You know, amidst all the tragedy that we're talking about, there's still an element of comedy in there. Another thing that Alexander Payne does, very well.
He's got a great way of mixing comedy and tragedy to where it doesn't bring you down and it doesn't alienate you. So you're still in there for the tragic part.
I think the word tragic comedy was coined for Alexander Payne.
Now, I love this movie. There was one thing I didn't like about it.
Can I take a guess?
Not enough to even drag down a rating point, but go ahead, take a guess.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with the children?
Yes.
Does it have something to do with the way white people raise their kids?
Is this 20 questions?
Well,
yeah. We're going to be here another hour.
Yeah, I know.
Is she bigger than a bread box?
Once again, why you always got to ask Leon and co-host the question? Just tell them. Actually, only in a roundabout way.
Okay, because the reason why I'm asking because I want to see if I have the same complaint that you do.
Okay. Everybody in this movie is great to me. All the characters except for the character of Sid. And I know that actor's from Austin, and they wanted to praise him a lot. But that character, to me,
Nick Krause is his name.
Okay, he came in for pretty much one joke. He's the teenage daughter's dumbass boyfriend who has to hang out there and be a comic relief, and it works up to a point. There's like one particular joke that's actually very funny, but from that point on, there's no reason for him to be there. He doesn't do anything. He's just kind of there. I mean, he doesn't drag it down because they don't keep going back to him. But it's almost like I kept thinking about like, wow, this family really. It's even almost like the daughter herself is kind of like, yeah, we need to lose him.
You're talking about the character who
little stoner
I'm
guy.
sure
The stoner
Keanu
kid.
Reeves was going, hey, that was my role.
Yeah.
In some way, when they introduced him, I could see where you're coming from. But I thought there was such a great moment between him and George Clooney while they were hanging out that I thought was real touching.
No.
And I like that.
And for that part in the beginning, I was like, sure, this works. But after that, it's kind of like, all right, he's just dead weight.
But you needed him for that scene with Robert Forster, which was fucking great.
I know.
I love that scene too because Sid is such a dumbass and a stoner. Robert Forster in the movie plays George Clooney's father-in-law, and he's a typical father-in-law. Doesn't like George Clooney. My daughter would have been alive if you had done if you done this and you had done that. If you hadn't done this and done that, and he's ready to beat somebody's ass.
Oh yeah.
And that kid is so stupid. He's pretty much Beavis and Butthead. He comes up to Robert Forster.
One guy.
Yeah, he comes up to him and he's pretty much just he pretty much just says
asking for it.
Yeah, he's asking for it. It's like, your daughter's in a coma. And Robert Forster just punches the fuck out of that kid. And I was like, that was a great setup. But you know what? I agree with you. As great as a writer as Alexander Payne is, and I know he co-wrote this with somebody else, maybe other people too. I don't think that was that character was such a joke that when you had a couple of scenes where he was used effectively, the rest of the times he was too much of a cartoon for this movie.
After the punch, he could have left.
But isn't he? You were saying earlier, we were talking about how it's a tragic comedy, how there are comedic aspects. He is the comedic aspect. I mean, there really isn't a lot there to laugh at or feel light about other than him. And if it wasn't for that, and you're right, in terms of story, he's relatively unnecessary. But in terms of tone, yeah, I think he's actually was pretty welcome to me all the way through because even though, he's just there to be silly, it lightens things up at exactly the right moments when the film needs a little touch of lightening up.
You're absolutely right. I mean, even when there's moments where seeing him like in the car with that family and George Clooney having to put up with him, where you're like, I was waiting for a scene to where they throw his ass out the car window. Just like, really, dude? But there's a part of him that I ended up liking.
Well, you know what? That's another thing is they kind of challenge you to like at the end, do you like that character or not? Because they do make that character a little more textured near the end. To me, not in a convincing way. I mean, the movie I could have done without him in some things, but I didn't hate him. The person that I didn't like, and I think she's a great actress. We were talking about what's her name, Shailene Woodley. I like her as an actress. I think she's amazing. To be so young too, but her and her little sister, the one who plays Scotty, Gracie Cruz or whatever her name is, but that teenager was just such a bitch in the movie to her father. And I know George Clooney was an absentee father for a while, and that's why she's probably lashing out like she is. And I like the way she grew later on in the movie, and their relationship grew. But it's just, I'm getting tired of seeing these parents not, just taking shit from their kids. I've seen so many movies.
You know
like
what? I
that.
wish you could have a teenage daughter.
Yeah, I mean, because
realize
that was like
there's that point where there's just nothing you can do.
That was the most realistic depiction.
It was,
because I've known girls like that, and if you think about it in the context of the film, the fact with you get a sense of who her mother was and the sense of what kind of father George Clooney was, it makes perfect fucking sense as far as that
not to
character being
mention
the way
just
she is.
of the moment, the fact that this girl is dealing with being really mad at her mother for being the one person who knows what she did and why the big twist. B, feeling a sense of inescapable disdain for her father for being completely unaware, just so clueless is happening. Like you fucking schlump. That's wrong. I mean, that's actually kind of natural for a kid to feel that way in those situations.
I can see that, and
C, to feel guilt about feeling anything at all, anger towards both of them.
I guess
the situation there in the middle.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, she sees him as
damn right, I'm right.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Honestly, I thought her arc was maybe the most important thing in the film.
Well, she sees him as spineless, and she takes advantage of that. And in a way, I guess he kind of is. I don't know. I'm just saying, if my daughter ever told me, "Fuck you, Dad," it would be 2 girls in a coma sitting in that hospital. I wouldn't be. I don't know. You can say, "Let me get a teenage daughter."
Once again, Alexander Payne would make a movie about you to where you'd be like, "Oh, maybe I won't do that."
Yeah, but you better sit the fuck down.
Sit your goddamn ass down.
Well, you'll have moments in Corey's movie where that actually happens, where he beats his daughter, but then it'll come around to where it was just a fantasy.
Exactly.
The entire
My
movie
daughter's
was a
beating me.
fantasy. Yeah.
Fuck you, Dad.
You asshole.
Give me the keys, Dad. Give me the keys.
You and that goddamn website. Pay
Robin,
attention to me.
Robin Williams used to have a famous bit where he talks about like being a parent, how wonderful it is, and all those moments, and then you don't realize till later that it's all just leading up to that moment that every parent has where their kid goes, "You know what? Fuck you, Dad." It's all leading up to that moment.
I don't know. Maybe I'm going by what I know. You know, shit. If I had ever told my parents "fuck you" as a teenager, I would be a chick. 'Cause they yanked my dick off. So, you know what, man? For all my complaints, though, I mean, you have to look at this. It's a movie that's so complex. You gotta admire the writing. And again, I'm sure for Alexander Payne at this moment, these are all gimmicks. This is all old hat tricks for him. I mean, for him to pull this out. But for us, or at least for somebody like me, they continue to work. I'm a sucker for it. So, you know, a glutton for punishment. But I really do love a movie that can make me feel like I'm a good guy by being very sympathetic, and then making me feel like a dickhead for being sympathetic towards whatever it is I'm being sympathetic to, and making me feel guilty by the end of the movie, and then bringing me back around and pat me on the head and being like, you know, that I've abused you emotionally, I can make you feel good again.
Pat you on the head.
Yeah, pat me on the ass. But no, it's it's a very well written movie. It's good to see George Clooney again, you know, acting outside of what's expected of him, since he could so easily ride that. I give this movie, surefire, full price.
Yeah, despite whatever small problem I had with it, it was nothing. I just brought it up because it was there, but it in no way affected how I felt about the film. Alexander Payne, his is a man who can take a character that you watch him steal money from his elderly mother, and yet you feel bad for him when his heart breaks. I mean, the guy he knows how to pull it. And George Clooney, he comes in, you go like, oh, it's George Clooney. But he has the ability to play regular guys. I mean, you know, with between this and Ides of March, he's my guy for this year. And this movie is a solid full price. It's everything I want in this kind of movie.
That's one of Payne's greatest abilities, is to take a huge celebrity and excise the celebrity right out of them and just make them a very human, regular Joe. And he totally does it with Clooney here. To his credit, like I said, Payne is so good with actors, and Clooney delivers one of the best performances of his life here. I think as well, Payne has delivered one of the best films of his career. I think he uses a lot less of the type of tricks he has in the past here. This is a much more straightforward story than we're used to seeing from him. This isn't a guy seeing that, okay, you know, you're a really extreme personality who's gradually coming to realize that the way you look at the world is totally wrong. It's not really that type of film at all. It's a much more relatable story in a lot of ways, at least I think for most people.
Yeah.
Although I suspect that probably describes most people as well. Certainly most of us. You'll see. Just wait. But no, I adored this film. It was one of those films that even though it's not like you're waiting for something to happen during the credits, I had to just sit there for a little while and let it all wash over me, because I was like, damn, that was a bulldozer of a movie.
Yeah.
So I love this. I give this a very, very high full price.
I'm with you. Full price all the way. It's one of those films that shows you just such a great family dynamic, as fucked up as it is. It works because this director just managed to get like just some great performances out of all his cast, especially the kids. You know, And George Clooney, I'm sure right now, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Paul Giamatti, they're all fucking pissed off, screaming at their agents right now. That film should have been about with me starring it because I'm the average Joe that fucking sits around with goddamn his pants slouching or whatever. You know?
Paul Giamatti got to be in the last one.
Yeah, he was in Sideways. That's That's why Paul Giamatti is a star. So,
Yeah, he's had his.
He would have finally gotten his Oscar. He hasn't gotten an Oscar yet, right? You know,
I don't know, man.
probably not. Well, this movie would have done it for
I
him.
think he got like a chocolate Oscar.
in the majority of parallel reality.
Wrapped in gold foil. Yeah.
Here's a Twix.
Yeah, you got it for
but yeah, I mean, well, you talk
I
about.
think he got an Emmy though for John Adams. I might be wrong.
okay.
But
Oh, yeah,
that's
could
not
be
an
right.
Oscar. But anyway, the thing is that you talk about just a great film, just where you can get wrapped up in this craziness involving with his family. I was enthralled the whole way out. I was shocked how interested I was. Didn't want to turn it off, but I have to give fucking props to the girl, the mother in the coma. She deserves an Oscar because every time either the daughter or George Clooney was talking shit to her in that bed, well, she just had that mouth gaped open, looking like shit.
She never broke character.
She was consistent throughout the entire
Patricia
movie
Hasty.
of laying in that fucking bed with her mouth.
If you see one coma performance this year, see it in the Descendants.
She takes the cake and the coma.
She should get the comas for that.
seriously, she needs to play Terry Schiavo.
She's
She's going to be amazing at that.
I wouldn't have been shocked. The director walked up to her. All right, that's a wrap, baby. Oh shit, she's in a coma.
Goddamn method actors.
No wonder you're so great. All right, just leave her there. I'll make a sequel.
Alexander Payne injected her brain with window cleaners.
Oh, what you done?
No,
I thought you guys were ready.
oh, did I not give
I
my
didn't know
rating?
what you. I thought you.
You
said.
started with
Yeah, you started out saying full price.
Full fucking price.
Okay, apparently I was in a coma just now. I'm looking at you with my mouth all open.
I was like, Halloween is over. You can't go with that chick.
And I have to tell you, as much as I love George Clooney in this movie, it also gave me pleasure looking at him. Even though he played a fictional character, I was still yelling inside, "Yeah, fuck you, Clooney! Yeah, not so big and handsome now, are you, you son of a bitch?
Talk about
You got yours, didn't you?
Where's your tux now, Clooney?
Yeah."
What were we just saying about self-delusional
I know, right?
realities?
I know.
Clooney somewhere is like, damn you, Coleman.
I can't wait for Alexander Payne to make a Spill.com movie.
I know. Read right now inside. I'm like, I love you, Clooney.
Shit, man, I might start writing that script myself.